G'day, Contrarian Dude here, and I wanted to make this video because it's come up a few times in the comments of my videos. People think, basically the short answer is because of automation, robotics and technology, capitalism doesn't work. And what they're seeing is, they look at the world and they see lots of people losing their jobs, getting downsized because of automation. Robots are taking over their jobs. I mean, even in like McDonald's now, or when you go and check into a flight, usually there's a kiosk there and you can check yourself in. There's no need for you to see a person anymore. And so people are losing their jobs because of technology, and they conclude that there's going to be just huge swarms of people who are unemployed. And granted, we do have a very high unemployment rate right now, and this is because of technological advance. And I want to make this video to shatter that myth. But before I get going, I want to acknowledge that you are seeing things like high unemployment and the struggling economy and all these kinds of things. They are caused by something else, and I'll reveal that at the end. Once I disprove that it's not progress causing the problems, I will share at the end what is actually causing those problems and why the confusion seems to come about. So why is technology good for workers? Just think at a very, very high level, a big black box around the whole economy. And as technology improves, then the productivity of each worker improves. That is, their amount of output, the amount of goods and services each worker can produce on average, goes up. Now what that means is, in a true free market, is that the cost of goods and services go down. Let me prove that to you with a crazy hypothetical. Let's go 5,000 years into the future, all right? And you walk into your local 7-Eleven, and actually you don't need to, because you just jump online and it gets delivered to you 8 seconds later by a drone. But online you shop for this little home robot thing, right? It's a little nano robot. It costs $19.99 and it gets delivered to you like 5 minutes later with a drone. And you say, hey, robot that cost me $20, go and build me a house, plant me a garden, grow all my food, cook me dinner, sew me a couple of shirts, I'm looking for a new fashion style today, and do it all chop chop. And nanotechnology goes and does it all, and you have everything that you want or need to live. Oh, and give me an Xbox too, because I want to play some games today. And this robot can just do it all. It's pretty clear that in that situation, why the hell would you want a job? You wouldn't want a job. You might want a job for some like mental health and stuff, and I get that, but the point is, all of your needs are taken care of so efficiently that you don't need a job. So, okay, we're not there yet. Right, we're not back in the dark ages where you've got to spend all your time, chasing zebras and gathering berries to try and eat. We're somewhere in between. But when you know, like the graph looks like this, way back, I'll reverse it, I hope I'm reversing it. Way back here, your productivity is really, really low. The standard of living of almost everyone is terrible. Way into the future, the standard of living is so incredibly high, no one has to work or do anything because robots will achieve everything. When you have those two data points in economics, it's true, the graph could look like this and go all crazy, but generally it's either linear, exponential, or logarithmic. That's generally the way. So just common sense tells us that if you know those two dating points, then the trend should be that we're constantly getting better and better and better every single time there's some technological advance. So we should know to look for that just by that common sense argument. So in that instant, when the person gets fired and the robotics and automation steps in and this job is lost, why is that a good thing? And the answer is, well, by definition, the cost of production went down. If it was cheaper to keep hiring the person and not get the robot, you'd keep hiring the person. So that we know by definition, the person is, we're doing things more productive, we're more efficient than we were before. Because competition is always driving prices down, when a company cuts some cost, that cost is normally passed on to the consumers, right? So let's just take an example. Like let's say you're a dairy farmer, and compared to 100 years ago, you used to have to sit there in your little stool and milk your thing, and to milk 100 cows, you might need to have 15, 20 staff. Now there's automated milking machines, and like one guy can just go and put the automated milking machines on the cow and do that. And so all of those jobs have been lost. But for the consumer, milk is significantly less expensive than it used to be, because you still have to pay for all the grazing and the food and all the veterinary bills for all the cows and all that kind of stuff, but your cost of labor has gone down. Now if you're watching this, you might say, hang on a minute, milk used to cost 5 cents a gallon, now it costs $3 a gallon. Like what are you talking about? The cost hasn't gone down at all. Like I said, I'm going to explain why things have messed up later. But for right now, common sense, that it's obviously cheaper to produce the milk. The consumer can pay less for the milk. And what that means is all of the consumers of the milk, their standard of living went up a little bit because they're now spending less on milk than they used to. So they now have more disposable income. They're effectively richer. So what happens is all of the consumers of the milk, let's say 100 cows can produce enough milk for like 500 consumers. Well, 500 consumers just had their life get better, their standard of living go up by this much. Now I forgot the numbers I used, but the 20 people who got fired, well, their standard of living went down a lot more. But we know for sure, this is just simple economics and math, the 20 times the large drop in standard of living is less than the 200 times increase of a smaller amount in standard of living. There was a net benefit to society. Now, if you look at that one little thing, you might say, oh, gee, maybe that's not worth it. I mean, those people experienced significant hardship. They're out of a job, and all these people get to save a few cents on milk. Now, what's the point? Maybe we should ban automation in milk production. But in that one isolated incident, it does look really off. But, well, first of all, if you did ban it, what you do is you go down the path of socialism, communism, whatever else. And what do we know about those things? All progress stagnates. You look at Cuba. You look at the Soviet Empire just before it crashed. Like, all progress stops. And what you're doing is all future generations suffer so that you can protect some workers right now. So that's a really, really bad decision, obviously. But it's also made particularly bad because you're looking at this one little schism, right? All these people who have just had their standard of living go up because they've saved a little bit on milk, well, now they have more disposable income. Now they start spending on other things, products that didn't even exist. Those products need to go and be invented, created, marketed, produced, and then sold. So, for example, people's annual budget on kite surfing lessons used to be really, really, really low average across the society. Now it's a lot higher. Why? Because we have so much disposable income. We have so much extra time because the productivity of the workers of the planet is so much higher. So we spend money on what our ancestors would consider frivolous. A home sun tanning bed, a home gym, more holidays, all these kinds of things. But the point is this, that increase in disposable income immediately produces another job. Because they've got new income to spend, they can spend it on other products, and new jobs are created immediately. Sometimes even in the form of, well, now that I'm saving more, maybe I'm just going to work less hours because I just want to spend time with my family and I don't need more money, and so I'm just going to take the savings on milk and just not do any overtime. Well, now the job is created by the overtime you used to do. The point is, somehow, somewhere, that job is created instantaneously somewhere else. I know that's not what we're seeing right now in reality, but what I'm talking about is what would happen in a free market. Right? We don't have a free market, have nothing like it. I'll get to why it's not happening later, but I just want to dispel the myth that it's progress and technological advance which is destroying all these jobs. It's not. Technological advance creates just as many jobs as it destroys. Again, when you look at this one specific example, it looks like, oh, so sad, someone's income went so much down, so lots of people, their standard of living could go up just a little bit. But this is happening, in all different industries. The guy who lost his job in the milk department, he also has a house and a car, and he has food, and he doesn't just buy milk. And so his cost of living went down across all these different sectors as technology goes faster and faster. And because there's an exponential process here, because we have to spend less time hunting and gathering and doing whatever else, and less time producing food as a society, and we have more time doing other things. So those other things are investing in ways to be more productive. That's where we spend the vast majority of our time now, investing time and energy in being even more productive. And so this is a very exponential process. And so back to that graph I did a little while back, you got that point down here 5,000 years ago, you got the point up here 5,000 years into the future, and you know that graph looks like this. It's not linear, it's not logarithmic, it is exponential. And we should be entering a time right now, the technology is moving so fast, it's almost vertical. There should be thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands and soon millions of people who are becoming unemployed. And they just don't need to work. It is so easy for them with a little bit of savings that they have. The cost of living should be going down so fast that they can get all of the necessities of life and live a very, very comfortable and easy life without having to work very hard at all. But that's not what we're seeing. So I hope that makes sense as to why, because automation, capitalism can't work anymore. Not at all. It is capitalism that drives all that innovation, is all that progress, increases our productivity, makes our lives so much better, and it's just going exponential now, can be crazy good if it were allowed to work. But now we come to the reality of the situation is unemployment is increasing. A lot of people are hurting. We're not seeing this in the real world. Why? And of course, if you've watched any of the videos on this channel, you should know the answer by now. It starts with G and ends with ovenment. So the two big interventions into the market that the government causes to create all of these problems, the first is inflation. As I said, with all of this progress and technological advance, the cost of living should be plummeting. Things should be getting so much cheaper because it requires so much less human labor to produce goods and services. But we don't see that. 30 years ago, 40, 50 years ago, whatever it was, a gallon of milk was 5 cents, and there was some guy on a stool giving these ones. All right? Now, automation should be so easy, so much cheaper, and now a gallon of milk costs $3. Why is that? And the answer is inflation. If you don't know what inflation is, it's probably not what you think. It's not rising prices. Inflation, the rising prices are a symptom of inflation. What inflation actually is when the government prints too much money. Well, they print too much money. When the government prints money, it's just like supply and demand. If there's lots of new supply of a new commodity, then the value of that commodity goes down. So if I want to trade my dollars for milk, because the value of the dollars went down because they created so many of them, I now have to use more dollars to buy the milk, which is higher prices for the milk. Now, there's a consequence of this. Inflation is not distributed evenly. That is, inflation hurts poor people way more than it hurts rich people for lots of different reasons, but I'll just do the simple one at the top of the queue right here, is when this money is printed, new money is printed, it goes to governments, it goes to banks, and it goes to all of the insiders, right? And they get first use of the new use of the money. By the time it trickles down and goes through the economy, that inflation process has kicked in, the market has responded to the excess supply of new currency, and the value of the currency goes down. So every time it changes hands and moves through the economy, the dollars become less and less valuable. So what that means is the insiders clubs, the governments, the banks, and whatever else, they get full value of the money. They print it to start with and just, here, have some money for doing nothing. There you go. And so they get the value of that purchasing power, and then the cost of that purchasing power, that is the lowering of purchasing power for everybody else. Once it goes through the economy, that's where everyone else gets felt. So the idea of inflating the money supply, which is where the term inflation comes from, this benefits government, which is in its entirety a complete waste and a burden on society, and banks and whatever else, who in their current form is also a total parasite and just extracting wealth from people. And this is where you get this is one of the main drivers of the wealth gap, right there. It's inflation causing it. And the second big cause of all of these problems is taxation. As government extracts more and more wealth out of a relatively efficiently operating free market, channels it into bureaucracy, even if you ignore all of the corruption and crime and side deals, and here, buddy, have $500 million to build the Obamacare website that doesn't work, and you forget about all the corruption and all the stupidity. Even if government worked in the most idealistic and brilliant way that it could ever possibly work, then you're still taking money from a more efficient place and putting it in a less efficient place. And the cost of this, it's a burden. It's like an anchor being thrown out the back of a car or a ship or something. It drags behind and it slows down the progress. And so between taxation and inflation, that's really why you see all the problems in the economy. It's got nothing to do with progress. It's got nothing to do with automation. Those things, in fact, without all of those things, the economy would have collapsed long ago. The only thing that could, I would say, save the economy, the only thing that could save the United States economy from a massive reset, like a really painful Greece-style, several years of just restructuring everything, is a massive increase in productivity. And there's possibilities of it, like things like the driverless car. If you think of how many man hours are wasted sitting in a car where you can't really do anything, and if you change that to, well, I can sit on a laptop now in a car on my way to work for just, billions of man hours per day, that's one of those things. It's like that big a technological revolution could create so much productivity for people, increase the productivity of the planet so much that it might buy us another 5, 10, 15 years, right, before this big reset has to happen. But that's the only kind of thing that could possibly stop that reset from happening, that economic collapse from happening, because the economy is so broken right now that it has to reset. And it's almost, if it prolonged for another 10, 15 years like this because of productivity, and the wealth gap continued to increase because more and more money got stolen out of the economy by governments and shared around the insiders club, it would be a tragedy. I mean, if it would just collapse and people would realize the mistakes of what they did and move back to free markets, within a few years, we could rebuild things very, very, very quickly. But I think, sadly, they've taken over the education system. People are convinced that capitalism is the enemy. Capitalism caused all of these problems. When this reset happens, they're going to follow the lead in Venezuela. They're going to follow the lead in Greece. and things are going to collapse, and they're going to go, oh my God, we're all hungry, we're all starving, things are terrible, quick, we need a socialist government. And you're just going to bury yourself for decades and decades if America does that. So that's why I make these videos. I really hope people get this in their head. You've got to start shattering myths now that capitalism is not the enemy, freedom is not the enemy, the government is causing all of these problems, and so that they know not to run to government when the inevitable collapse happens. I hope this has been helpful. I hope we've shattered the myth that progress means capitalism doesn't work, anything but, and I'll see you soon.